coming on. I'm so happy to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I know it was a far journey for you. What floor are you on in this building?
We are on the Sky Lobby floor, which
Oh, wow. I didn't know there were offices on that floor.
Yeah,
I thought it was just like Ramon's palace.
You know, Ramon, bless, he is a delight, but we share the palace with Ramon.
Okay, nice. Yeah, far track, 2 floors.
Yeah, I did go to the wrong floor, which it's funny. Sometimes interviewing people for Who, What, Where, it's somewhat of a test if they can get here on time.
Yeah.
And if they built in extra time because the parking situation is wild.
You need an extra 15 minutes when
right.
you come to the Pacific Design Center.
So I failed my own sort of test and was a little late because I went to the wrong floor. So
it's fine. We forgive you. We're used to it. Everything has 15-minute padding when you're here and when you're in LA because everyone's just like chronically late.
Which is a lovely thing about LA. It's like LA,
kind
you're
of
on LA time.
I kind of love it. You know, someone actually tweeted something recently that I thought was so funny. It was like when people walk into a restaurant and you had dinner plans at 7, but you get there at 7:05 and you're like profusely apologizing. Like, what do we have to say about us as a society? That like, we're like, I'm sorry I'm late for 5 minutes.
Like I was human and I took too long picking out my outfit.
5 minutes, 5 minutes, I know. Well, I'm so excited to have you on today. One, we were talking about earlier that this is like your first pod.
Yeah, I think so.
2, I had such an interesting experience recently that I'm like eager to debunk. And I'll tell you the story. You know it briefly, but I'll tell it for everyone listening. I was sitting in a restaurant, maybe like within the past year vibes. In the past year, and I was sitting next to this editor who works for like a really great magazine that like so many people listening would want to work at, have jobs at, whatever. So we're sitting there and, you know, we're exchanging niceties. She's like, so what do you do? And I'm like, by the way, I tailor that answer depending on my audience. Like if it's a person who's like completely random and like doesn't know anything, I'm like, I'm in fashion marketing. Like, because they just can get that.
Right.
But if it's someone in fashion, I'm like, I'm a style expert, I'm a content creator, I have a podcast, blah, blah, blah. So I told her I was in fashion and I like explained a little bit. And she was like, oh, yeah, but like, we're all second rate here. And I think I was like so taken aback in that moment. I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, you know, if you're not living in New York, like no one really cares about you. Like the bubble's there, like the industry's there, and all of us here are just like trying to make it work. And I was so kind of appalled at that for 2 reasons. One, I do feel like as someone my senior in the industry, like I hate this talking down situation.
Right.
Like
kind of rude.
But 2, I was like, I find that so wrong. Like there is a flourishing industry here. There's so much going on. And I know so many talented, incredible people here in LA who are a part of the wheel of fashion.
Yeah.
And sure, we can talk about like the nucleus of fashion being in New York, but the fact that she discredited it so quickly really made my head spin. And so I wanted to do an episode with someone who I greatly admire in fashion that is so deeply ingrained in the industry, so successful, who lives in Los Angeles, to debunk the mystery and just like shine a light for anybody listening who's ever been told that there's no fashion industry in LA.
Yeah, let's do a quick rewind on that, and we're gonna set the record straight.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it was definitely jarring, and it wouldn't leave my mind. I think I've thought about it like once a week since.
Yeah, I mean, you said this happened maybe around a year ago, so
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've been mulling for a bit.
I've been brewing. Yeah, I've been sitting at home being like, that didn't sit right. First, I was angry, and then I was like a little insecure, especially because I lived in New York for 10 years. I was like, well, I know what that's like. Like, I've been there. I've been in like the microcosm of it, but I've also been here and had such a unbelievably amazing experience in LA in fashion. Right. So I'm so excited for this discussion.
Me too.
Yeah. But so I want to start at the beginning for you, for anybody listening are you born and raised here?
No, I'm from far Northern California,
okay.
A small 3-stoplight town called Mount Shasta, California.
Shasta daisies.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
People have all kinds of references. There's Shasta Cola, Shasta daisies.
I love a Shasta daisy, and I know that they are from Mount Shasta, so, you know, whatever, weird.
It is a place of natural beauty, I will say.
Amazing. What was your intro into fashion? Like, what was that spark growing up that made you want to be in it?
Yeah, so growing up in such a remote town, like it was probably an 1.5-hour drive to the nearest mall, I grew up loving online shopping as soon as it kind of became available. And I think shopping was my entry point. Like I was like, I love clothes. Yeah. And like, you know, sort of working my summer jobs to try and get money and use my pay my mom back, but use her credit card because I didn't have a credit card to like shop on Shopbop and these like early online retailers, I still have the order history, and it goes all the way back. My first purchase was a Juicy Couture zip up, only top only the jacket because that's what I could get, and a size too small because that was what was on sale. But I wore that thing every day.
Also, like the size too small, give a little midriff, maybe like a low rise jean. It was the moment. It was,
and now we're back. I'm sitting here in low rise jeans again. So so I really loved clothing and kind of expressing myself with clothing. And then I went to college at UCLA down here in LA. And, I was like, I'm in the land of, for me, I didn't really ever consider going to New York. I was like, I'm in the land of internships. I'm going to be the internship queen. It was definitely that era.
Oh my God. Wasn't there literally the website Internship Queen?
Oh my gosh. I think so, actually.
There was that. There was Ed 20. No, there was a girl who
Ed 2020.
There was Ed 2010.
2010.
There was a girl. I swear, I think her name was the Internship Queen.
Yeah,
and
there's someone who's branded herself this way.
Yes.
Sure.
I don't think she was like in the Instagram era, but she had a website that was like a huge deal.
Yeah. So I was like, let me just snatch up all these internships. And I did a few, I did one at like Paramount Pictures and a few, but then I did some in fashion and I was like, oh, I like this the most. So I just, kind of explored in that realm and then was like, this is what I'm meant to be and what I want to do. And I had sort of set my sights on who, what, where, because I was like, headquarters are here in LA. I love living in LA. It's funny, they gave a talk at my school, UCLA, and I missed it for some reason. I was like, my career is over. This was my chance to meet them and like get my foot in the door. And I've really messed this up. I've screwed the pooch. But then I was able to take an internship with them later on.
I'm curious, what did you study at UCLA while you were there?
I studied mass communications. UCLA doesn't have a fashion program of any sort. So yeah, that was kind of the closest to like, writing, communication, stuff like that. But it's funny, I talked to people who have gone to USC, like the sort of competitor school in LA, I would say. And their communications program, from what I understand, is like incredibly practical and very much about like, this is how you write a press release or this is how you do this. And UCLA's was like, this is how animals communicate. So, it's a very like classic thing, I guess, sometimes where your schooling has little to do with what you end up doing in real life. But, interesting, I guess, cocktail tidbits nonetheless.
I'm so curious about that because I have a younger sister right now who's wanted to get into fashion. And she was like, she was in school during like COVID time, like she didn't really finish college, and now she's kind of bouncing around jobs. And I think a lot of people who are younger think that you either need to be studying something to get that internship. What was your situation? If you're studying comms, what was your first fashion internship and like how did you land that?
I think my first fashion internship was Refinery 29, I want to say.
That was everyone's like dream fashion internship in like 2012.
And it was kind of a loosey-goosey situation because there wasn't actually, I think there was one editor out here who was like no office kind of situation. And I was just like, I will do stuff for free. And that was the era, which now is, I think the industry has learned that that's not chill. And we pay interns, which is how it should be. But yeah, I think I was just persistent and like, let me do things for free. Let me make your job easier. And I think she was, had a lot on her plate being the only person out here. So I tried to see how I could be a resource or helpful to her heavy workload.
I feel like that's the thing. It's like if there's a job you want and it feels maybe like a sharp left from what you're doing, it's like how can you make yourself the most useful?
Right. Like anticipate need, anticipate the opportunity and where there are holes that you can fill.
Definitely. It's interesting though because now I think about fashion and for you you're working at like kind of the maximum level of fashion. I feel like today I'm surrounded by so many people who have such dense knowledge of fashion history. And like they know all the eras, they know every designer that's been at every place. And I think that's obviously very specific and like a very, in my opinion, like unique point of privilege to be able to study that and go to school for that.
Right, totally.
In your position now, like if someone's listening right now and they're maybe a comms major, do you think you need a formal fashion education to go into fashion?
I don't. I think if you're passionate about it and you're interested in the topic, you will have done some of that schooling yourself because it's fun for you. You're like, actually, I do want to dive into all these, old videos from Tim Blanks doing his like reviews, whatever, from whatever era. And I think you have to know the industry and to know the context of what you're doing. But I think if it's your passion, you're teaching yourself a little bit. And I do think life is long, and it's almost, I feel a little more well-rounded having not specifically just fashion as my educational background.
Okay, so you're at Refinery. Never had a thought of, I'm going to go to New York for fashion. You always were like, I like the industry here, I'm here.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't hear New York's siren call, because I feel like most people do who work in fashion. I don't know. Maybe I like the idea of like a more approachable sized pond.
I love that.
Or just one thing kind of led to the next, and you kind of end up staying here, especially, when I had my internships, like developing the relationships here, and I don't know. But yeah, never made the move. After I worked for a bit for Refinery, I took an internship at Vogue magazine here in LA.
With Lisa, the wonderful Lisa Love.
With Lisa Love, Jessica Cantor, Lauren Howell.
The LA icons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, worked in that closet,
Wow.
Until the wee hours of the night. That was exciting because that was like real deal fashion. Learned a lot. Learned how to not cry, run hard.
I love how the first thing is not like learned how to put a look together. It's learned how to not cry.
Right, hold it in.
Yeah, I get it.
It's like, that's a real baptism by fire sort of situation right there. And then I took an internship at Who What Wear. And that was around for the time that I graduated, I want to say. And then I was available for work, looking for work. And there was a job interview for one of the co-founder, Catherine Power, her assistant. And I was like, great, I'm a shoo-in. I've worked with them. It was a positive experience. And I submitted my resume, and I was told it was too late, that they already hired someone. And I was like, okay, chill. I'll just do like any work I can find until this role opens up again. And so then the role opened up again 2 years later, after I had done, bid my time. And I applied this time, and then I remember what I wore exactly. And
what did you wear?
I wore some J. Crew, like, it was called the mini pant. I don't know if they still have it. It was like a slim little forest green pant, a blue navy blazer from Zara, I think, or something. And then I had these Dries Van Noten sort of printed lace-up heels that I got on eBay. And those were like my wow moment. Mm-hmm. And I remember I had the interview, and then my full name is Catherine, and my boss's name was going to be Catherine. So I popped my head back in, and I was like, and by the way, when the interview was done, I was like, and by the way, I can go by Kat. And then I got the job, and I was her assistant, and they haven't been able to get rid of me since. It's been 12 years.
By the way, that you can call me Kat was definitely the selling point. She was like, that's my girl.
Right. She will change her name to get this job.
I want to hear in your perspective as someone who is like in New York all the time, you're working, and here in LA, and especially since you have that unique perspective, like you really did rise in the ranks in LA. And I personally only know a handful of people that had the opportunity and still do work at Vogue LA. Like I feel like from even like the fashion community and at large perspective, it's kind of a mystery.
Yeah.
Like I don't really know how many people work there. I don't know if there's an office. Like
they just moved their office. Condé Nast just moved their offices downtown.
It was on Wilshire, like across the street from my house for a while. So that was nearby.
That's where I interned. It was there forever.
And that was near the original Who What Wear, because I interviewed there when I was younger. And
no way.
I did. I don't think I got it. Yeah, I didn't get it.
That is shame. Shame on Who What Wear.
No, I was a young spring chicken, just trying to. It wasn't meant to be. I maybe would have like stayed in LA. I don't know. It wasn't meant to be.
Right. When one door closes,
another opens. Yeah. Totally. So
the Condé thing, though, yeah, it is mysterious. Like, what are the actual roles out here? It's very limited. I think there may be only like some salespeople, a few content people, but
right.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm curious in your perspective, like what you think kind of the key differences in the industry are between New York and LA.
Well, I think there's obviously some more obvious ones that, New York will always have more opportunities. And I will say, not to be on the side of the girl from that dinner party that left such a mark with her comment.
I just didn't like it. Rubbed me the wrong way.
But I think it has gotten a little smaller out here since when I joined. There used to be Zoe Report used to be out here. That was when they were independent and before they were bought by Bustle. But I think part of the one of the differences I see is that because it is a sort of more, it's a smaller group out here, I think we see each other all the time, and when we see each other, it's like we're old pals, even across like kind of very different types of publications and stuff. And you kind of get to know, like, I feel like they much more mix like influencers and celebrity stylists. And in New York, I think they, like with the events and stuff, sometimes they keep them more like, oh, this is a influencer event, this is like a press event, that kind of thing. Because there is more of a wider group out there. So I think, I don't know, we're a small group, but we're mighty. I think of how LA has like Booth Moore, you know, who's like one of, I think, America's greatest fashion critics.
I agree with you. Like there are a lot of people here who definitely command high regard and high respect in the fashion industry. But I will say, like, as someone who's really and truly done both, like I've been in LA for 4 years now. When I moved out of LA, I was 18, left for college, didn't have a career yet. Did New York for 10 years, and I'd say about half that time I was like working at full capacity. New York to me now feels a little bit more commercial.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I do think in terms of like the design talent in New York versus LA, of course, New York, it's such a more developed ecosystem. Right. That designers, you know, emerging designers enter, and there's more of a defined path of success and growth, I think. Whereas LA, because it is, you know, it's smaller and it's less, it just feels like you can kind of do your own thing. Like, it feels like your designers out here can like set their own sort of schedule of you know, releasing product and kind of chart their own path a little more.
Agree with that from a designer perspective. Like, if you are someone listening who wants to get into design, there are so many LA designers that I love. I feel like a lot of the brands here that I love are more e-commerce, social first brands.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You have to be reaching your customer, I think, through those channels. You know, there's not the brick and mortar stuff. When brands say they're opening brick and mortar here, I don't know, I get nervous sometimes. I'm like, unless it's like a pop-up or something, I'm like, yeah, you just don't get the foot traffic, whatever. You have to find, so you have to have an engaged community, I think, you know, through social, through, you know, email, things like that, to do well as a designer.
But I do think on the flip side of that, like the influencer / creative world here / like editor has popped off.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
All of a sudden, out of nowhere, everyone was doing something here. Gucci, Chanel, Balenciaga, like New York. I mean, LA became kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah.
This place where people weren't just doing in-store events; they were doing build-outs.
Yeah,
and I felt
investment.
Like they were investing in really creative moments here in LA.
Yes, absolutely.
I wonder, from your perspective, where did that come from? Like, we kind of all just got hit by a bus of like really fun things.
Oh, I am here for it.
I'm so here for it. I actually, like, after a year and a half to like 2 years of like sulking about not being in New York, I'm thriving. I'm so happy here as a creative. I'm really creatively fulfilled. I'm inspired. I'm excited. I have so many friends in this industry like yourself that like I love to see out in the world and like truly feel supported by.
Right.
Like, I, as a fashion person who, again, did the New York thing for 10 years, am so happy here in LA.
Yeah. LA rules. Yeah, but I love it when, you know, Versace show was, I don't know exactly how long ago that was,
right
but that
here,
was in the parking lot of both of our offices.
Right there, yeah.
Which is usually not as glamorous a spot as it was that night, but that was a funny moment. We had people like up who, you know, who weren't like our social team, who weren't invited, like up, like relaying like celeb arrivals down to the person, like catching it. I mean, what a lucky day. And why I think some of these brands, you know, why it can be kind of a hot moment to come to LA is LA is rich with like storytelling. Like, there's so much here that you can like it's the Western frontier. It's the birth of, you know, the cinema industry. Like, it's just, it's so rich and it feels fresh and you can do your own thing here. And I think that's appealing to people. People want to come here, you know, and you fly people out. And I hope this trend continues because you know, it really loans a lot of credibility, I think, to LA.
Yeah, I've loved there's been so much lately. Like, I'm never not doing something here where, like, you know, Miss Dior was 2 weeks ago. They always do that here every year. Like, Chanel showed at Paramount Studios. Balenciaga show in literally the streets of Larchmont. Like, what a and it's interesting to see these brands come in and find really unique places in LA to make these things come to life.
Yeah.
Like
Hermes has been doing a lot of those events that are really immersive.
at the hangar, yeah.
Yeah, and there are spaces in LA that like you just can't get anything like that in New York, where there's room and it can be sort of dramatic. I remember when this was several years ago, but like Dior did the thing in Malibu, their I think resort show, and it was just like fields and like hot air balloons and magic, and LA's sexy.
Do you think that LA has the ability to become a true fashion hub? Like a real place that people and fashion here has gravitas?
I think it will never be New York, but I think it does have the potential. I think there are enough talent here, I would say. But I think to push it over the edge, I do think it would probably need some major investment from not the designers themselves, like banding together and trying to create something. Like when you see other like emerging fashion weeks around the world, like remember when Stockholm was such a thing, and then that kind of like it faded out a little bit,
right.
And now for several maybe 5-6 years, Copenhagen has been like a sort of a secondary one of the bigger secondary fashion weeks, and the reason why those happen is because there's investments, people like companies that are like pouring a lot of money and investment into it. So I think that's what we need to kind of push it over the edge, because LA Fashion Week, I don't know, it's not a thing, but there's so much talent here. I think it could be a thing. I don't think it'll ever compare to New York, but that's okay, because I think we have our own thing going on.
I don't see LA Fashion Week ever being a thing.
I mean, it's hopeful. I was trying to present like a positive picture.
I don't get me wrong. I still think LA has the ability to become a hub, like a great creative hub.
Yes.
But I can't see, I don't know, I don't see it.
It hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't happened yet. You know what? I'll remain optimistic. But I think where LA Fashion Week is at now, I think something that I deeply admire about a lot of LA designers is they want to go their own way. As we were saying earlier, they don't want to confine to a schedule, a season, etc. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why like there are so many LA brands that I love that I could never see joining the fashion calendar.
It's true. That's a good point. And we do have New York where you can go do that. You can join the fashion calendar, and LA brands have done that. You've seen like Staud, for example, do that huge runway show at the Plaza Hotel, which was such a moment. So yeah, probably best to let LA be its sort of like rough around the edges,
kind of like
do your own
mysterious
thing. Yeah,
again,
independent.
Keep it sexy. I think we're a creative industry here. I think in New York it's a business.
That's a good point. I do think, to me, one of the mentality differences between New York and LA is I feel like LA is so private, right? Like it's all about like your personal architecture, even, you see, and like the space that you have that is your own home or your own studio or atelier or whatever. And I think that so you can kind of go insular and like you're just navel gazing and like in your own little creative bubble in a good way, versus New York, you have to engage with the society, what's going on outside your doorstep, in the whole city. It's like buzzing and you're kind of jumping in the flow of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think LA should keep its own little magic. I think I'm with you.
I mean, I love downtown LA though. I feel like that's like a bubble, a fashion bubble.
Yes.
Like my dad had a manufacturing business when I was younger, and like that was his world. And like
Schmata?
Big time. There you go.
Love.
The only word I heard growing up, like anytime. And I have so many friends who have like kind of followed in that footstep. And it's been amazing to see. Like there are so many brands that I love down there, and they all collaborate and have their own little downtown community. Like Mad Happy, Cherry, Sammy Miro Vintage, like all those guys are downtown and thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. There's honestly one of your questions about like LA brands. I was like, when you start going down the rabbit hole, there are like a lot.
So many. What is your
many.
favorite?
I would say I thought of two that kind of rose to the top for me. In the jewelry space, Sophie Buhai, to me,
Sophie Buhai's in LA?
Mm-hmm. That's the thing, is she's so low key.
I thought she was in Brooklyn.
That you don't know where she is really, but she's here. This I know, and
unreal. Wow.
Yeah, I'm just her POV, and for real fans, she had the brand Vena Cava in like the early 2000s.
Had no idea.
With a partner, and that was kind of like a cool girl LA brand. But anyway, Sophie Buhai, obsessed. Anything that you buy from her, you just know you're gonna wear it forever. Mm-hmm. And And then in the clothing space, one of my favorites is Tigra, which I think she is kind of just like at the foot of Laurel Canyon. So not too far from here.
Cool. Love
Yeah.
that.
Well,
I have so many, like truly
Yeah,
so
let's hear
many.
it.
I mean, I love, like, I feel like I have a lot of friends who have great brands. Juliet Johnstone is so cool, and she's an amazing artist. She paints all over her clothes, which I love, like beautiful butterflies. And Sammy Miro Vintage makes really, like, unique pieces all from dead stock.
Yeah.
I think everyone that's here has a very unique point of view.
Yes.
And it's definitely not in, like, the high fashion couture area, but they thrive in, like, that very unique perspective that you don't get anywhere else.
Yeah. You think of like elder statesmen. They've got their whole
They're so
such
cool.
a developed point of view.
Yep.
Simon Miller.
I love Simon Miller.
Yeah.
Reformation's in LA, is it not?
Yeah,
It is,
absolutely.
yeah. There's a lot here.
So many greats in the denim industry too.
All the original greats are here.
Yeah.
Joe's Jeans.
J Brown, all the, ready for a renaissance whenever we're waiting.
Now you've piqued my interest. I would love to hear one of my biggest thing living in LA that drives me nuts is that I will wake up at 7 in the morning and, like, it's 7. It's early.
So early.
But it's not. It's 10 in New York. There's a lot happening in the world. And I've actually wanted to ask you this in real life so many times, but as an editor-in-chief of a West Coast magazine, how are you making sure that things are always
fresh,
top of mind? You're on it, like you're there.
Well, this might be an annoying answer, but we have a large team in New York.
Great. Love.
As well.
Great.
Larger than in LA, actually.
But for you, like, let's, like, refine the question.
Okay.
What's your media diet in the morning? Like, when you're waking up, like, what are you watching so that you're like, okay, I'm on top of all the news as an LA person in fashion?
Right. For me, it's a lot of, there's the good old style.com if you need your Instagram quick headlines. I
was not expecting that answer, and I loved that answer.
Yeah, I mean, he's fast.
He's fast, he's on it, he's straight to the point.
Right. Like you can
give it to
go
me
like
straight.
Google it, and then you can check your inbox and be like, oh, I got that press release while I was sleeping.
Right. Also, though, like, I think what's really fascinating about his account, there's no pictures, so it forces you to go, like, find the thing.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think you kind of have to, like, accept that it takes you a second to come to, and that's part of the LA, like, I'm not on your exact narrative in New York. Like,
we're sexy here, okay?
Yeah, we're doing our own
7 in the morning
thing.
Yeah.
So I think there's part of it too, where you're sort of releasing yourself a little from the timeline of New York and East Coast, and knowing that you'll get there.
I really think, like, even in having this conversation with you, like, the biggest takeaway that I feel like I'd give to anybody listening is, like, it's the most personal decision deciding, like, what coast you want to be on. Like, if you're cool with this pace, amazing. There's a world for you here.
Right.
If you want something faster, there's a world for you there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I think it's an interesting practice and, like, self-awareness of just knowing which one you're a better fit in.
Yeah, I think so too. It's a beautiful point. And I feel like we've highlighted really the differences quite, like, we've distilled it down. It's like, are you, I think of myself as type A too, but there's always going to be someone who's more voracious or, like, type A or aggressive in terms of their goals and how they're climbing the corporate ladder and all that sort of stuff. So that's more of a New York vibe.
Totally. That's what I meant when I said earlier, like, I felt like New York is a little bit more corporate commercial. Like, brands are doing in-store events. There's activations on the West Side Highway. You're trying to climb the corporate ladder in, like, a big office. Like, you're not going to get that here in LA. Listening right now who wants to work in fashion, what is your best advice as they are looking to maybe apply for a job at Who What Wear? Like, what are you looking for in new hires right now?
For me, to impress me with a new hire, I think they have to be somebody who is so excited about coming to work at Who What Wear. Somebody who is not casual about it, is not like, oh, I'm interested in fashion, so this was an opportunity. Like, they want to work there. They will never be more excited to work there than before they get hired.
I feel like that applies to a lot of places.
Like, you want that passion, because that sort of cascades into a million other positive characteristics to me of, like, work ethic and, like, commitment to greatness and excellence, and actually, like, caring enough about the brand that you're going to bring your best to it, and knowing the history of it and the opportunities and the white space, and really just, so I think that passion and is really kind of a starting point for me. But honestly, I've hired people for all kinds of reasons. One time, this girl had a great bag, and that was it.
Point of view, baby. Point of view. Point of view.
I mean, I'm editorializing a bit, as I will do with my job. But, it was the time, it was like 2000 something, and this girl had no fashion experience. And she did two things that really impressed me. One was she brought a binder full of story ideas, but like was not asked to do that at all. But like printouts, like binder, and it was like, okay, initiative.
Obsessed.
And then she had a Mansur Gavriel bag, and it was like 2000 something, and that was so hard to get. It was impossible, in fact, unless you were really resourceful.
We didn't have Gab Waller those days.
Yeah, that was things were harder. You had to like
you had to really try.
source things and be scrappy. So she's still with who we're today, actually.
Love. Oh my God, that's great. Okay, last question to close us out for everybody who is more curious about the fashion industry in LA, wants to get excited. What is your craziest LA fashion memory?
So one night, one thing also that I love about LA, this is just like a little love letter to LA, this episode, is that the bars close at 2, which I think is a delightful kindness to everyone, really. And so the bars or the clubs, whatever, bars closed, and my friends and I went to Swingers.
What was the bar you were in?
Oh, I can't remember, but it was probably like Ledoux.
I'm smiling so good. Keep going. Okay.
That's where I met my husband.
Oh my God. Iconic.
Very amusing.
Iconic.
So we went to Swingers, which is like a diner place that's open, I think, 24 hours on Melrose.
Yep.
And so we were just sitting there, and then Mary-Kate and Ashley walked by, and they were wearing like sheer robe cape things with feathers.
2:30 in the morning, gotta be?
Yeah, like,
Did you see what they ordered? French fries, anything?
No, and I froze, and I knew this was a very special moment the second it happened, and it was just, they were visions walking by. They were just like so clearly in like vintage, like exceptional, dramatic clothing. And
absolutely.
That was a moment that I cherish.
Oh my God, love. I've never seen them in the flesh.
Yeah, they're elusive creatures.
Thanks for coming on the show. This was so much fun.
I loved this.
Loved it. So fun. This really did feel like a love letter to LA, and like very like very validating and very like important. So thanks.
And nice for people who are exploring careers to have options and to think like it's not New York City or nothing.
Yeah. No, definitely not. I do love the brand New York or Nowhere, but when it comes to fashion, it's not New York or Nowhere.